Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you the Hero 11 Black and going through specs, features, showing you footage, letting you hear audio, that kind of thing, and then you can decide whether this is the right camera for you. Also, this video is sponsored by Film Convert. The GoPro Hero 11 shoots 5.3K up to 60 FPS and 4K up to 120 FPS. What you will want to do when you shoot with the Hero 11 though is shoot in 5.3K because that is going to give you the best quality footage. And obviously if you want to shoot in 120 then you're obviously going to have to use the 4K, but this is the difference between 4K footage and 5K footage. So in terms of the design, the first thing that you're going to notice is the fact that it is exactly the same as the Hero 10 and also the Hero 9, just the fact that the Hero 9 has a grey number on the side, but the Hero 10 Black has the number on the side in blue, just like the Hero 11, but essentially the design is exactly the same. So if you had either the Hero 9 or the Hero 10, then it means that you can use your accessories from those cameras previously. So if you had filters or you had media mods or lens mods or anything like that, it's all going to work on the Hero 11, which is just going to save you a ton of money. So one of the things that I was really excited about with the Hero 11 was the fact that it has a bigger sensor. It has a 1/1.9 inch sensor, which is bigger than the Hero 10, which came in at 1/2.3. So this is going to give you better image quality, and it also has a great feature now, which allows you to shoot in an aspect ratio, which makes it easier for you to shoot vertically and horizontally. If you shoot for YouTube or social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, that kind of thing where you need to shoot vertically and horizontally, you'll know the biggest conundrum is, do I shoot vertically or do I shoot horizontally and then try and make it vertical? Well, you don't have to do that anymore with the Hero 11 because you can shoot in 8:7, so you're getting a much better aspect ratio when you do crop into those vertical and horizontal aspect ratios, which just makes it awesome because you can always shoot in 8:7 and then you can decide later on whether you want it to be a vertical video or a horizontal video, and then you just have the option later on if you want to then switch it up at any point. And another reason why this is great is because you now have access to another field of view called Hyperview. So this is going to give you a really wide field of view so that when you're capturing your footage, you've got more of the background in frame and more of the surroundings in frame, which is pretty awesome. So along with the sensor upgrade, the GoPro Hero 11 shoots 10-bit color, which is awesome because it means that you're going to get more natural looking footage in colors and whatnot. It also means that when you come to color correct and color grade the footage, it's going to give you a lot more flexibility and it's going to reduce the banding that you're going to get in things like the sky, so you'll just get a higher quality image when you're color correcting and color grading. And that actually leads me on to today's sponsor, which is Film Convert. I've been using Film Convert Nitrate for years. I've been using it to color correct and color grade my footage, and it's really easy to use. You just install the plugin into whichever video editing software you're using. So if you're using Premiere, After Effects, Final Cut or DaVinci Resolve, install the plugin and then you can use it directly in your editing software. What I love about Film Convert Nitrate is the fact that it's a film emulation suite and it gives you access to loads of film stocks which you can use on your footage. So if you want to take away that digital look from using digital cameras, then it gives you the option to do that, and you can dial it in as much or as little as you want. It's awesome. It also supports a number of different cameras like GoPro, for example. So I've been using it on my GoPro Hero 10 quite a lot, and while there isn't quite a camera pack for the GoPro Hero 11 yet, there will be soon, so do keep an eye out on that. But what you can do is download a trial version and then you can try it out. And if you want to get it, there's a link in the description to where I've dropped a code, Tamara G, and you can get 10% off. So thanks again, Film Convert, for sponsoring this video. So I wanted to just do a little bit in the flat colour profile so that you could see what it looks like colour corrected and colour graded. I've got 10-bit switched on, so I'm going to do another comparison where I've got 10-bit switched off and see if it actually makes a difference. Okay, so now I've got 10-bit switched off and colour correcting, colour grading the footage, and this is what it looks like. So the GoPro Hero 11 comes with the Enduro battery, and this is something that they released a little while after the Hero 10 was released. So it doesn't come as standard with the Hero 10, but it does come with the Hero 11. And yes, if you had the Hero 10 or you wanted to get the Hero 10, you could just buy it separately. So it's not really a massive deal, but it is great that they included it with the Hero 11 because it really does increase the battery life of the camera. I was out shooting for a couple of hours and I was really impressed at the fact that the camera didn't die on me. So it is really good. If you're familiar with GoPros, you'll know that if you want to shoot in manual settings that you have to switch over to ProTune. But now there is a feature which allows you to switch between easy mode and pro mode. So the easy mode is great if you just want to switch the camera on and start shooting, and all you want to have control over is how fast or how slow you want the footage to be, and also the field of view, because it will do everything else for you. But if you want to have access to controls like your manual settings, ISO, shutter speed, that kind of thing, and also change the stabilization, then you will need to set it into the pro mode. Shooting in pro mode is something that I'll talk about in another video, so do subscribe and hit the bell to be notified, because I'll go through loads of details and the best settings and that kind of thing. Hypersmooth is now 5.0 in the GoPro Hero 11, so it was 4.0 in the Hero 10. And one of the features that this has in the GoPro Hero 11 is the fact that it has an auto boost feature. So if you were doing something where you're not quite sure whether you're going to actually need the stabilization, you can put auto boost on, and the camera will determine whether it needs to use stabilization or not, which is quite handy if, like I said, you don't know whether you're actually going to need it or not. Otherwise, you do still have access to the other settings, which is on, standard and high or boost. So far, the audio that you've been hearing in this video has been straight from the camera microphones, and it still is at the moment. And what I was actually going to do was use the media mod, but because I'm shooting in the 8:7 aspect ratio, because I couldn't quite make my mind up, whether I wanted to actually shoot vertically or horizontally for certain parts so that I could make shorts and that kind of thing. I couldn't use the media mod because I wanted to show you what the audio sounded like using an external microphone, and it was getting caught in the frame. But that's something that I'm going to talk about in another video. So I'm going to talk about using the media mod and let you hear the audio from microphones and then the media mod microphone and that kind of thing. So again, subscribe for that video if you are interested in seeing that. So I went out and I took the Hero 11 paddleboarding with me the other day, and I thought I'd get a comparison between the Hero 10 and the Hero 11 after I dunked both the cameras in the water to see if there was any difference. And when I got the Hero 11 out of the water and I started talking and then I listened back to the footage, I noticed that there was some distortion. And I don't know if that's because my unit might be faulty or because there was just a water droplet on the microphone, but this is what it sounded like. This is just an audio comparison between the Hero 10 and the Hero 11. If I look at the right cameras, yeah, Hero 10's on the left and the 11 is on the right. So this is what the audio sounds like. They've both just been in the water, so again. So after hearing that, I decided I'd do another test. So this is what the audio sounds like from that other test. And so this is the audio with the camera not being dunked in the water. So I'll dunk it in the water now so that I can hear if it makes a difference. Okay, so this has just come out of the water, and I haven't wiped the microphone or anything, so I'll do that and see if it makes a difference, if there is anything to hear. And so this is the audio after having wiped the microphone. So aside from the water issue, the only thing about the audio is the fact that when you've got wind noise reduction on, then it the audio takes a little while to start up. So it starts off really quiet and then it gets up to volume. So you just kind of have to wait maybe a second or two before you actually start talking when you've got the wind noise reduction on. But when the wind noise reduction's off, then it's absolutely fine. So if you heard in any of the sections where I was talking, you'll hear that the audio starts off a little bit quiet. That is why, because I had wind noise reduction on. But yeah, just something to be aware of. I do think Hyper Smooth works really great, just like it did with the Hero 10. I haven't really seen much of a difference in terms of the stabilisation, like how stable the footage is between the Hero 10 and the 11. I think where it differs is the fact that you can do a 360 with the Hero 11 and keep the horizon in place, which is really cool if you're doing something which requires that. But otherwise, yeah, pretty much the same as the Hero 10. The only thing that I did notice was the fact that when you use Auto Boost, it does some kind of weird jello effect. And that happened a couple of times. It didn't happen every single time, but I think I just need to test that out more. But the likelihood of me actually using that is slim, because I will either just have Hyper Smooth on or not. Well, most of the time, no, I will have it on unless I'm on a tripod. So the likelihood of me actually using Auto Boost is really slim. In terms of colour profiles, I didn't really see a massive difference between vibrant and natural in certain situations and in certain lighting conditions, but when you do see it, then vibrant is so oversaturated that I would never use it. And natural would be my preference, but I really like to use flat so that I can just colour grade and colour correct the footage, because I think it looks better when you have that control and you're able to dial in as much of the contrast and exposure and all that kind of thing as much as possible. So yeah, flat, colour corrected, for me personally, I think looks a lot better if you have the time. But if you don't have the time, then I think natural is definitely the better colour profile to use over vibrant. So I'd never really recommend filming with an action camera in low light, because they're not going to give you as good a quality as something with a bigger sensor is going to give you, like a mirrorless camera, for example. But what I did notice was that when I went out and filmed in low light, it was around sunset, about half an hour before sunset. Someone actually said in the comments, sunset is not low light, but it kind of is, because it's getting towards darkness where the light levels are going down, so I do class it as low light. The footage actually looked quite decent, so I was actually really surprised with that. So if you're shooting on an overcast day, or you're walking through trees, or you're filming around sunset or anything like that, then the Hero 11 doesn't do too badly. But like I said, there are cameras that are going to be a lot better. So if you're actually looking for this and you're going to be filming in low light, then the Action 3, I was going to say Action 3, the Hero 11 is not the right camera. So yeah, just something to bear in mind. But if you do need to film in low light, then I do think it doesn't look too bad. So you could get away with the footage. I really like the idea that you can film in an aspect ratio of 8:7, because like I said, you've got the whole choose whether you want to shoot vertically or horizontally, or rather crop into horizontal or vertical and not lose out on a lot of the framing. But there is a lot of distortion. So if you notice, when I was sat on the bench was really distorted. So if you're up against any lines, any obvious lines, it is going to look distorted. And I haven't actually tried in the GoPro Quick app to see if there's a way to undistort it, so that's something for me to actually check out. But I think in something like Premiere you'd be able to. I'm using Final Cut at the moment, and so Final Cut is very new to me, and I was looking for a way to do it and it was just taking too long, so I thought, you know what, I'll just leave it as it is. But it at least gives you an idea of how distorted the footage is in the 8:7 aspect ratio, and just how much you will need to do to make it not distorted anymore. I think 10-bit does make a difference to skin tones in particular. When I had footage from the Hero 11 and the Hero 10 side by side, I did notice a difference when I was colour correcting, colour grading the footage. The Hero 10 footage looks a little bit more yellow in the skin tones, whereas the Hero 11 looks a little bit more natural. So I think that it does make a difference. Whether you notice it if the footage isn't side by side, whether you notice it more. I don't know, I wouldn't say so, but yeah, when you are colour correcting and colour grading the footage, you notice it. And I think if I was colour correcting, colour grading the footage from the Hero 10, I'd think, what else can I do to make this skin look better? And I think that's when with the Hero 11 I didn't quite have that same question, because it was just coming out better when I was colour correcting and colour grading it. So yeah, I would say it does make a difference, to me anyway. What will be interesting to see though is the firmware update from the Action 3, which is supposed to get 10-bit update. So I will be comparing the footage between the Hero 11 and the Action 3 at that point as well, just to see what difference it makes and if it brings the quality of the Action 3 up closer to the Hero 11. So yeah, that's in another video though, and also when the firmware update is released. So hopefully this video has been useful in some way, just so that you could see footage from the Hero 10 and that you could see features and specs in action. And I've got loads more videos. I just said the Hero 10, didn't I? Hero 11. I have more videos coming out about the Hero 11, like I said, the media mod, seeing how you can use manual settings, ND filters, all that kind of thing. So do stick around and stay tuned. But thanks for checking out this video, and thanks again to Film Convert for sponsoring this video. Catch you guys on the next one.